Gotcha.
Right there. We're streaming across platforms. We are live. We are live on a few platforms now. I'm with my man Luke. We're going to give this a minute to load up on the LinkedIn generator. I wonder if LinkedIn, everyone's LinkedIn live. There's so many live streams going on right now. My girl Hala Taha is live with Kristen Sherry, who I'm going to have on next week.
There you go.
We'll get to that in a minute. I love it. So many people are having such amazing conversations right now. LinkedIn's having a problem with my post. We will deal with that. That's on that group page. We're going to remove that one. Give me a minute here.
Man, LinkedIn's over here trying to add 16 million different features at once, and I just want them to fix how the UI works. It's like, come on, man.
What issues do you have with the UI? I think we could go on for days about that.
I think
we're gonna start this in a minute.
The two biggest frustrations for me are, one, the inability to schedule posts on desktop, but you can on mobile. That's frustrating. And then two is messaging. Just like the whole way messaging works is garbage. Like the fact that when you send something, you get shot back up to the top. Like I had probably 100 people wish me happy birthday, and I had to go through and scroll up and down in every single one of them. It's an interesting time. Yeah,
Mark Noodleberg, we're back. We are back. I'm doing this daily. I am with my man, Luke Kasunic from Kansas City, both Missouri and Kansas. Depends if he's working or living. I guess he goes across the river there, right? Yeah. I mean, right? You have to go across a physical river to get to where you need to go.
Yeah, there's the Missouri and the Kansas, and the Kansas flows into the Missouri, and I think that's like where the curvy border starts. I don't really know too much.
Wow. So we are live. It is, I can't believe I'm going to say this. We finished the month of March. We did. It felt like it was 100 days. I'm with my man, Luke Kasunic. It is, what's that?
It did feel like a long time.
It was absolutely ridiculous. And we're still in it. It is the first day of April in the year 2020, right? I think we're in 2020. We just finished our 90-day guarantee period for the year of 2020, and unfortunately, we cannot return it anymore. We cannot exchange it. We can't do anything about it. We are in it, and we're all in this together. So it's pretty crazy here. Well, Luke and I have been connected for a bit on LinkedIn. I have been a big fan of what him and they're doing over there in Trendsetters. Did I say the agency right? I know you're missing a letter or two in the spelling of it on purpose. That's probably like a Gen Z thing. Like
we're missing the vowels there. It's either the greatest or the worst branding move of all time. I can never decide.
I don't know. That's a tough one. I mean, because you could debate it too. Because how do you say the name of your agency when you're presenting it to people?
Trendsetters. Yeah.
Right. So if I'm going to go Google it, or if I'm going to try to find it, I'm going to be missing a letter.
Yeah. I mean, you're not wrong. I mean, it's definitely interesting there. Like how, I mean, like it's one of those things where it's been really useful sometimes because we'll say it to somebody and we'll be like, oh, it doesn't have vowels. And then they always remember it from there out. They're like, oh, that's the name's the one without the vowels versus it being lost to confusion in the Google side.
Oh, man. 110%. So let's do a proper little intro here. And here's the way I would do it if we were doing a live podcast here. I'd say, hey, everybody, welcome to the podcast. And I'm with my main man, my guest today, Luke Kasunic. And let's tell you a little bit about Luke. He is a college dropout. I have a dream. We'll pause on this one. I'm going to do it a little bit differently. I have this recurring nightmare, Luke, and I'm a bit older than you. I am probably about 20 years outside of college, which is crazy to think about because I literally still feel sometimes like I'm in college, my college years, which were amazing. I'm even wearing a strange shirt today. It says adultish because that's really how I feel. But I have a recurring nightmare, Luke, that I didn't graduate college, that I missed a couple of classes. And I have this nightmare maybe once every couple of months. And I wake up and I think about if I completed that calculus class that I failed twice and I had to take over in summer school. And it's very real, man. It's very real that I think that I failed this class. But I digress for a minute. So these guys are cool. He's a Kansas City native, tech nerd, social media nerd, and him and his crew, they built out an agency really focusing on forward-thinking social media and taking a very different approach. And that's really what caught my attention. I want to learn a bit about your agency. I want to learn about the nuances of Gen Z and what's that all about. I'm in a weird demographic. I was born in 79, so I guess I'm Gen X by definition. Right?
Yeah, I think it is weird.
It's weird, right?
I mean, in the way that like you're right in the gap, like right inside that little window.
Yeah, and what's interesting about, I could just speak for kind of, my gen. It's interesting. We live on that cusp between analog and digital.
Right.
I grew up in Brooklyn in elementary school. I learned how to type on an actual typewriter. I had flip phones. I knew what life was like before cell phones, which is crazy to think about, and how we used to do things with rotary phones. And then, being part of the full digital revolution. I mean, I was, when I worked at Sirius XM, I was one of the first people to beta test live streaming, audio live streaming at Sirius Satellite Radio back in 2006, 2007. I had a BlackBerry, been through the technology revolution, the internet bubbles and all that crap. And I think, it's a very unique generation, which, I mean, because we have that we ride that, the divide between analog and digital. But Gen Z fascinates me a lot more than millennials, in so many ways, and the hustle and the grind, and I love it. And I want to pivot into talking about you and your background and what you guys are doing there. So give us all like the quick little backstory of kind of you, your crew, and where the impetus was to develop Trendsetters Media.
Oh gosh. Okay. Let's start with the college stuff, because up until then it's sort of, so graduated high school, and everybody, I was a cross country and track runner, right? So everyone around me is like, oh, go run in college, go run in college, go run in college, right? Like that classic, like, oh, you were this, so you have to go do that. And I let a lot of people push me in a direction that I probably shouldn't have. I ended up going to a smaller college in Western Kansas to run cross country and track. And I absolutely hated my life, like beyond belief.
Why?
It's just, when you get up and you're up at 6 a.m. 7 days a week to go do something, it helps to love what you're doing. And if you don't love what you're doing, you find out really fast.
Oh man.
So I mean, like,
no pun intended with track running.
Yeah, I mean, like right now, what I do here at Trendsetters, like I'm up, if not at 6, before 6, almost every single day. And it's just like, but I love it. And it's a completely different ball game than getting up and going and running 13 miles before your 8 a.m. class, And so that kind of, that kind of put me in an interesting headspace. Semester 1 of college, I had some pretty nice scholarships there, so it wasn't too much of a hard decision. And I just kind of that semester decided to transfer back to a community college at home. So I was there for a little bit. I started doing some stuff on my own with, I was waiting tables for a while, just kind of doing the whole college lifestyle, 18, 19-year-old motivated person right now. And about, I want to say the beginning of my sophomore year, it was like May of 2 years ago, I kind of started thinking about internships and stuff because my friends started getting them. And I sort of started looking at business as a whole. And I was confused. I was like, there's 180,000, I think it's the number, 184,000 business majors every single year. And it's like, what makes me different, right? Like what diversifies?
How are you going to stand out?
Right. And, I was over here working 35, 40 hours a week to pay for school. And so I didn't have those connections. I didn't have my normal working hours are night times. Like, internships were like a weird, like the time frame didn't match up and it's weird. And it was a debate of like making money and being able to pay my way through school.
It's a tough balance, trying to figure it all out.
Absolutely. And so I was like, well, what can I be doing to diversify myself? Because I also thought hey, Susie's aunt works at Deloitte, so she's going to get an internship there. And as a result,
she's got the in. Yeah, she's got the in. What's my in? What am I doing?
Exactly. It's like what is I don't have those relationships built out. So how do I start building those relationships? Like I understood. I had a pretty strong grasp on kind of where I stood in terms of like intelligence and the ability to execute inside the marketplace of what I wanted to go into. I was a double major in marketing and business analytics before I dropped out with a minor in econ.
Got it. So you had a foundation, right? You had the roots as far as like some of the fundamental pieces that you needed for a business.
Right. And so I kind of started doing some outreach on my own. So I did the whole Gary Vee thing and emailed like 200 different businesses. 2 responded actually. And I ended up working with like a small clothing company here in town. But like relationships are relationships. And I became buddies with his ads guy. And then I became buddies with someone, his ads guy's buddy.
All about relationships, man.
Right. And I eventually started working with influencers, and I can kind of cut that part short there, where there was a point where I was working with like 5 or 6 different fitness influencers. And I realized that I was really good at, using behavioral economics to kind of understand the landscape of social media. And so that's kind of where I really started delving into LinkedIn, because I was like, okay, well, this is a business social network, and I'm good at messing around on social networks the right way, right? Not buying.
Right, but you're the right outreach, right? You're not buying followers.
Yeah,
you're not hacking.
How can I create better things in a better way that amplifies the ability of them to grow and scale? And so I kind of ran into Jake's content on LinkedIn, and that was last summer. It was like same thing. So it was almost a year later after I started doing my own thing. It was like right into May of last year, like April. And I started seeing his stuff there, and I was like, okay. And this is back when I think Jake's at 40,000, if not over, followers on LinkedIn now. This is back when he was at like 8,000 followers. And so I messaged him, and I was like, hey man, like I have some interesting ideas and strategies when it comes to social media right now. I'd love to like have a conversation and see what can happen there. So then I ended up.
You guys are local, right? Did you know him? Did you know him? I mean, did you know of him? Do you have any friends in common or anything?
No. Weirdly, no. There's a lot of people who work here and who have worked here that are connected inside of his network, and of course outside that as well. But there's the thing people say about Kansas City and kind of Johnson County, which is on the Kansas side, is that it's it's literally ranked in the nation as one of the best places to raise kids. But it is one of the best places to raise kids. I grew up there, and there's a ton of motivated, intelligent. Kids our age. And so funnily enough,
hungry.
It's not hard to, if we really need to, like, we haven't even really put like the nets in the water yet to try to pull people in. We're about to do some internship stuff this summer. So that's going to be really fun in that side of things. But yeah, so like I started working with him for free at first, kind of to prove myself. And also like, I'm very much so in the mindset of always when you don't know somebody and they don't have a strong background in who you are, it's best to prove your worth to them before you ask for money for anything else. Like
100%. And that's such a mature thought that so many people don't get. They just ask, right? They don't show value. There's no social proof. And it's not wrong to ask. And asking is the only way, in my opinion, then you get things in life. You don't get anything unless you ask for it. But there's a right way to do it. And you got to have the cred behind it. Absolutely. Spot on.
Yeah. And so that kind of happened there. And I started doing some stuff with him. And, that was back when this really was on the ground floor of what the stage that it is now. Trendsetters started, right when Jake was out of his freshman year of college. And that was around the same time I got started on my own, but it didn't really kind of devolve into the animal and the thing that it is today until then. So, I got in kind of right when things were kicking off, and I think it's a good time to be getting in. And, the rest from there is told through my LinkedIn. Like I've just been working on various different projects for about the last year, really kind of been growing the team side of things has been interesting, like the management side of stuff. Like,
but let's pause for a minute. I want to go back to that decision when you decided to drop out of college, right? Yeah. Like, I want to what was that? Was there like an aha moment? Were there conversations with your family, your friends? Was it a fully unilateral decision when you're like, nope, it's my decision, it's my choice, I'm done? Like, right. and like, what was that decision like? And was it at the time always a permanent decision, or is it like, let me take a break for a little bit and explore, what's happening in the marketplace? Because maybe I don't really need this full college education right now.
Right. So there's three different things that I think are key pointers and like around the decision and things that are important around the decision. One is that, oddly enough, my dad actually didn't want me to go to college at all. He didn't go to college, to be fair. But he thought that, he was right. Like I got bored in class really easily. Like it's not like it literally, and like, I hate to sound pretentious, I guess is the only word I can use to describe it. And like the fact that I even have to say that bothers me, but like, literally, class was too boring for me to want to pay attention to. which is why I love this so much, like what I'm doing now.
Right. I mean, this is real classroom stuff here too. And I get it too. I mean, it's a whole topic for another conversation. Is college too boring for the current generation that's in school right now? Is it not engaging enough? Right. Is it old? And I think the mantra is like, it's kind of one of those things. Anything that they're teaching you in college has been outdated for 5 years already.
Oh, absolutely.
Unless it's real term internship program or externship or anything like that, or people coming in like business leaders, entrepreneurs that are coaching you real time. Otherwise, they're looking at a textbook, right?
You should see some of the marketing classes that I took.
I can't even imagine.
It's kind of mind blowing. So there was that, right? It was that was kind of up in the air there. And then number two is I had paid for it. So my dad didn't want me to go. So weirdly, whenever I made that decision, he was he was beyond supportive of it, because
that's fantastic.
He knows me and he knew that I was making the right call for me. Because originally he wanted me to go work with one of his friends who owns his own business, and work my way up there. So that was awesome. Number two though is that I'd paid for all of my school, right? So it's like semester one was cross country track scholarship. Then
right, you earned it. You earned it. So it was your choice. It wasn't like other people were paying for it.
Right. I mean, like, and weirdly, one could like sit there and be like, wow, you walked away from, spending like 16,000 of your own money on school. Like, you did physically write a check for that much money and you will never get it back. And now it means nothing. So, I mean, but for all my accountants who are watching this or ever will watch this, sunk cost fallacy is a thing. And, it's silly to make decisions based around future decisions based around past things that don't really matter that much anymore. Like, in terms of
I've already spent that money. I've already done that. I've already invested into it. Yeah. Right? You have to kind of be forward thinking when it comes to that. But that's a hard mentality. I mean, we could have a whole separate conversation on sunk costs, right? Like, oh shit, I spent X amount on that. I have to use that now. I have to use that knowledge. I have to use that piece of equipment. I have to use that device. If it's outdated and it's not going to help you moving forward, then what's the point? Park it, right? I mean, I could tell you a bunch of things that I've done in my life that were good investments at the time, and now they're obsolete, or I don't need them, and you got to cut them out.
Yeah. And so that was really freeing, is like and I had, like, whenever I went to KU, that my last semester of college, I was living on my own. So, I mean, like, when the decision time came, I've been living on my own for like 7 months too. And so it's just like, it was very much so like, I mean, like, I've been paying for everything too since I moved back home. So it's like, like it was literally, there's almost zero transition, except for like, okay, now I don't have class anymore, and now I'm in the office, like, now I'm fully in the office. And the last kind of the back half of that semester, I was skipping more classes than I was going to, because I was doing so much client work.
Right. And you just weren't into it. Like, it kind of told you off, like, for you that this wasn't right for you. And you also had the opportunity, as I like to say, to be in the real world at the same time. Yeah. So it was I wouldn't even say it was a calculated risk. I mean, it was just a logical progression for you into where your path was. I mean, you were following your path, Luke.
Yeah, that's a great way to look at it. I mean, and then to kind of like to cap that off with the third point there, the friends' parents and the friends was weirdly the most pushback I got, right? And the funny thing is, I'm like, none of them wanted me to do it at all. Especially
like stay in school, like,
yeah,
because it was like an old school mentality, like you needed to have a college degree, otherwise you're not going to get a job. Right. I mean, right now, honestly, man, unless you're a fucking doctor or something, or a lawyer where you need the professional degrees, it's crazy to look what's happened in the last 20 years to the education system. I mean, even big companies like Deloitte, EY, a lot of the big four consulting firms too, they're not necessarily requiring a college degree. However, and that's for certain jobs, right? But there are some jobs, right? Whether it be different like M&A or anything that requires like an accounting or finance background, where you still, you may not be that easy to get a job without it, right?
No, absolutely. And it was funny kind of how I gauged those, where it was like, I was very weirdly strategic about it, where I would float the idea. I had already made the decision. I was like, okay, I'm going to be done with school, right? But I floated the decision to everybody, like, hey, like, I don't know if I should do this or not, before I told everybody that I had made the decision. And so as a result,
you tested it in the marketplace. You did some marketplace testing.
Yeah.
Some focus groups.
I got everyone to tell me why I shouldn't. And then I was able to use that to build a very coherent argument as to why I should. So it was useful there. And kind of the main point of that was just like, a degree whenever it's not in STEM, right? Like whenever it's not in science, technology, engineering, or math, and not in medical and finance. You know, a degree is really at its core a piece of paper that's 60 different people who are qualified going, hey, this person can do work and show up on time, right? Like that's what that is. It's like, well,
right. They passed the ability to transfer into the world of adulthood. They went from adult-ish to adult.
I want that shirt, man.
You can find it. Yeah, I love this shirt. It's one of my favorites. I'm trying to rotate my shirts because, like, I kind of been living in 3 pairs of sweatpants. I have my sleeping sweatpants. I have my work sweatpants, and then I have my in between work and sleep, my nighttime. So I feel like I'm transitioning sweatpants. Right? It's kind of weird right now, but the weather's getting nice. So, what's that?
Do they get like progressively more comfy?
I fully embrace the athleisure. Obviously when I go to the city and visit clients that, I'm properly dressed, but, living in the burbs here, I love my athleisure wear, man, because it's comfortable, right? It started with like, you notice the ladies in their Lululemons and their yoga pants. And I'm like, well, why can't I have yoga pants? Right. Why can't I be equally as comfortable as them in the same pants?
Right.
And then my friend introduced me to Lululemon, and I got a couple of pairs last year. And I got to tell you, man, I'm wearing black Lululemon pants. They're not super tight, but I'm wearing them now, and they're fantastic.
I've never tried. I kind of forget that Lululemon has guys' clothes.
Dude, it is money. I mean,
really?
Take a look at their clearance stuff too, because you could probably get some good stuff too. Anyway, we digress here. So I want to pivot the story into where Trendsetters is at today. Yeah. Pitch me. If I am a potential client and I want to know more about your agency, tell me what you guys are all about and what added value or why I should choose you guys.
I mean, it's 2 different things mostly. One is number one and kind of the main value prop of our agency and the one that we push to everybody is the Gen Z side of things, right? Like there is a massive wave of consumers with huge amounts of purchasing power already.
Yeah, disposable income.
And also a massive amount of influence on household decisions right now that everyone seemingly disregards. They're coming into the market, like they're realized, like I am the older edge. Like I think it caps out 23, 24 and I'm 21. Right. So it's just like, we're here. We're just,
you just had your first drink recently. You just had your first ever alcoholic beverage. Okay. Just checking on that. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I made sure that happened. I think it was right before all of this stuff went down. So,
right.
Yeah. It was like 3 weeks before. Yeah. I think I posted about it on LinkedIn. Actually, I made a joke.
That's good content, right?
Yeah. But so the Gen Z side of things is I mean, like most brands don't even realize that they should be pivoting away from millennials, right? And I think one of the funny things,
why?
Because there's no, I mean, in the words of the Ogilvy pitch deck that I love, right there in bold when it comes to consumer trends is millennials continue to disappoint, right? Like there's all of these.
It's such a bold statement. Like it's such a generalization. Like what kind of shit is that?
Well, but it's, I mean,
how so? How did they disappoint?
Because there was all of these lofty expectations set, right? Like this is supposed to be this amazing generation that is doing, I mean, early on, now there's not so much, but there's supposed to be this amazing generation that is going to utilize technology and all of these new things to change the world. And, they're passionate about, like different concerns and different movements. And so they're going to, use all of their leverage and influence to create change. It's just like, none of it's really happening. And it's unfortunate, but it's true.
I mean, do you think it's a self-fulfilling prophecy? I mean, I've heard all the things about millennials being entitled and spoiled and all that. And then I firsthand have seen so many incredible millennials that completely, dispel that myth in actual practical action and example. And I think that's blown out the window. So you're making this generalization that, according to the Ogilvy deck, that millennials disappointed, and now it's time for Gen Zs, this younger generation. They're finally reaching adulthood and have spending power and making decisions, making household decisions as far as what consumer products to buy. Why are some brands like either not embracing it or not hitting the mark? I mean, that's your value prop, right? You are Gen Zs talking to Gen Zs. That's your value prop. Yeah, you're not talking to Gen X or boomers. I mean, you can because they are the parents of these.
Yeah. I mean, there's a couple different things there. I mean, like one is I mean, pretty straightforward. And that's, and excuse me while I collect my thoughts here for a second, but
yeah, sure, man.
The first one right off the bat in terms of why Gen Z is more prevalent and why brands need to connect. And wow, I'm talking in circles here. Just to be sure, the question is why Gen Z over other generations, correct? Yeah.
Why now?
Yeah, why now? I mean, one, we're young and we're able to be influenced this early. And then two, I think that with how we're positioned with everything going on, right? I mean, weirdly, and we describe it as Gen Z being a generation of paradoxes, right? Like we care a lot about health, but we also care a lot about convenience. So drive-through food sometimes gets in the way there. Like it's the thing. So like on the health side of things, and also like with even like working out, with habits, like all of this different stuff going on. Like we're the most entrepreneurial generation ever. But at the same time, like no one is valuing taking the right steps to go be an entrepreneur. You know, like it's
a little bit counterintuitive at times, a little push and pull.
But all of those things are incredibly interesting because of how uniquely positioned we are with things we've experienced. Like, so for instance, when we were all like 9, 10, 11, 12, 2008 happened. And so like I got to watch my dad work 2.5 jobs and my mom work 1, right? Like I understand what happened during that. And this, like what's going on with the economy and everything right now is really interesting. And I mean, that's a whole different conversation. But like the perspectives that we have at where we're fiscally conservative, but at the same time, we want to go out and make an impact and do cool things and start businesses and like, you know, all of this different stuff. It's just a very interesting hodgepodge of people and generations. And it's a very fun group to market to. And I think it's a really, really good time to, if you're a brand, to step in front of that group and that generation and use this development period to really build some structure and some brand recognition and
I love it.
There's some relationships with your consumers.
Right, but let's go back to that Ogilvy deck. Where how old is that deck? Is it a recent deck?
Where they're calling, it's their
right. So they're calling millennials a disappointment. I mean, what are you doing, or what are you seeing your generation do to ensure that is not the same sentiment, 5 years from now?
And that's a great question, actually. One, I think the expectation isn't there. I think that's the first one, right? Like it's always interesting when there's a super lofty bar set and then everyone expects you to meet the lofty bar. And so with us, there's not so much there, but one could argue that same hodgepodge of things that was supposed to make millennials so special is prevalent here as well. Like we're incredibly technologically native, beyond belief. And
incredibly. I mean, even if you saw my 1.5-year-old, the way he navigates, his dexterity, the way he navigates on any iPad or phone, it's native to him. I mean, literally, it's another communication. It's his way of communicating on that, and the way of him, moving things around, picking the next thing, and it's smooth, man. It's not like it's not hodgepodge. It's like the UI is there. He gets it.
Yeah, I had the fortune of having he's 10 now, but watching my 10-year-old brother reach, over the last 10 years, grow up with everything going on. And it was incredibly fascinating to like compare my childhood with his and things that were going on. Like, for instance, I consider myself to be a little bit of a man of culture. Like my dad bought me an NES before I had an Xbox. So like I got
a man of culture.
Yeah, I got to experience some old school technology, right? But
try the original Nintendo.
Pardon?
Try the original Nintendo. The original Nintendo was great, man. Classic games on there. Now you could literally get 800 games on your phone in like a minute, right? You could get all those old games. Duck Hunt. You ever hear about Duck Hunt, where we had this plastic gun and we literally, like, the cheat thing was to like put it up to the screen and like try to kill all the ducks. Mario Brothers. I mean, I remember even in college we were playing it was a Nintendo 64. We were playing Mario Kart for days, literally 48-hour marathons of Mario Kart.
Yeah, we had an N64 and a Sega Genesis growing up, all that fun stuff.
Ooh, the Genesis was awesome. But Sonic, what else was on Genesis? They had a good hockey game, I believe.
They had a motorcycle game that me and my brother could not get enough of. I forget what it was. There was also the N64, we played Mega Man a ton. We played Mega Man X a ton. That game was so frustrating, especially like once you got to the boss levels. But we
digress.
yeah, back to my little brother there. It was super fascinating watching him, like, because I had a slide out keyboard phone whenever I was in middle school. Like, those were still around.
It was horizontal, right? It came out of the bottom.
But and they were phasing out, but I had one, and so it's like it was really interesting to see him just get fully integrated into like the iPad and the Xbox and like the Fortnite, and the Netflix and like the instantaneous streaming and all of these things that really came to light right as I became like a 10, 11, 12-year-old.
Right, but so you were in a position also to understand what was going on at 11, 12, right? You had that foresight and insight.
Right. You know, and I think that's the big difference between the next generation behind us, which is Gen Alpha, which is what I think. Yeah, Corin is right at the older edge of Gen Alpha, or maybe he is young Gen Z. I don't know. He's right there on the side. But
my daughter's 8, so I guess she's about the same age, a little younger than your brother there.
I think that's right, Gen Alpha territory, like that 8 to 10.
It's all streaming. I mean, her too is completely fascinating to watch do that. So I want to jump into more of the agency here. So did Jake have an agency formed already that you joined, or was this kind of like Voltron all coming together?
A little bit of both. So, and weirdly, I mean, his story is his own to tell, but I can synopsis it real quick. Sure. You know, in high school, he was running the largest Snapchat account way back before like the Discover page and like ads even exist, like just pure raw original Snapchat. He was running a Snapchat account with his buddies that had one of the largest followings and in the Midwest, but definitely like the city in the area. Right? I think he had like 60,000 people who were added onto this Snapchat story.
Big.
And so there was the point where brands were contacting him to like advertise and do stuff for him on it. And eventually that sort of transitioned from 17-year-old Jake to also like, hey, you're young. What should we be doing on Instagram right now, right? And so he found
asking him for advice and strategy.
Yeah, I mean, he found himself in a place at like 18 where he was giving strategic advice to Noodles and Company. So like, and things escalated pretty quickly. But he went to college for a year and realized it wasn't for him, and so decided to leave and start Trendsetters Media in full form. And so he kind of had that moving, and there was some rises and falls and things that happened along the way there.
Of course, you're young, you're 19. You have to figure out how to build an actual business, and everyone has this lofty idea of like just starting a business, but they don't really know until you get into the trenches of what that actually means, right?
Yeah, man, it was super interesting to hop in what I did and just kind of like it was. I think really the main thing was the goal perspective of where we thought we'd be in December whenever we were talking in June of last year versus where we actually were, and how that framed everything in the right way. Like I think the biggest advantage, but also disadvantage that we have being as young and motivated and hungry as we are this young is that we don't contextualize time like other people do. So it's an advantage because we can move really fast because there's no
speed to market.
Mm-hmm. But it's a disadvantage when there are certain goals and things that do take time to achieve, and you set expectations quicker than you think based around those goals, right? The awesome thing about that is that it's a massive learning experience. And I think just like learning what a certain amount of dollars and revenue workload actually means is
right.
Really in terms of like, okay, so like we're getting paid $15,000 a month. What, like in terms of our allocation, does that look like? And
right, what does that look like for allocated for an FTE, right? Like how much you pay people based on that? What do you need for overhead, your taxes, your infrastructure, all those subscriptions and services and business taxes and liability and workman's comp? And I mean, I'm rattling this off for a specific reason, is because you don't know all these little things. Oh, paying your accountant, paying your utility bills, paying the city taxes, employment lawyers and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's been an interesting ride on that side of things for sure. Like, I think one thing that's sort of been our saving grace is we're all very operationally oriented people. Like we all love processes, and we all are very, very determined to everything that goes wrong. It's like I said, let's look at that and let's find a way to make it go smooth in the future. Even the minuscule things, like we're all, especially Jake right now, and like. I mean, he apologizes for it, but I actually don't think I personally give him enough credit for doing this, where it's like he is really on the core group who's like kind of the foundation of this thing right now more than anything else, because he understands, and like I see how fast we're growing and how fast we're about to even grow more than we have, right? Like even the last 2-3 months, but he sees the developing and he sees the future right there. And he's so on top of everything to prepare us for when that wave comes and to make sure that everything is in line and ready to roll, because either we surf the wave or we crash. And so we need to make sure that we're doing everything we can to surf when it happens.
That's really interesting. And you know, I've been watching you guys from afar, right? And that's just via LinkedIn. And you know, the things that I find admirable are, number one, that you're not, let me be careful, like you're not hacking the system. And listen, some hacks are good, some hacks are okay. And you know exactly the type of hacks that I'm talking about. They're more the cheats than the hacks. There's a big difference between a cheat and a hack. Hacking is taking advantage of a platform in a good way. Cheating is cheating and manipulating and duping people. But you guys are growing the right way, and you're growing you're not just growing followers, you're growing fanatics. And there's a core differentiation between followers and fanatics. Anybody could grow followers. That's not the hard part. Fanatics are the people that are your true customers, your true fans, and the people that believe in you. So that's number one that I see you guys doing. Number two is the content, and not just the quality of content and the type of content, but it's also about your positioning. And it's really how you guys have taken a very unique tone across all your messaging, where it straddles a very difficult line between confident, knowledgeable, and cocky, right? Because I don't think you push the cocky limit, but you get at times, in my opinion, close to it in a good way, because there's a fine balance between being confident and cocky, right? Confidence having the ability to back it up, right? Confident is knowing that you got the proof in the pudding. And I think that's what you guys do really well. And you tell it how it is, man. You, Jake, the whole gang, like, you know, you tell it how it is. And there's a little bit of old soul in there too, which makes me kind of smile, because I'm really dating myself as I talk right now. You know, I'm literally almost twice your fucking age, which blows my mind, because I literally feel I could be sitting in that room with you guys strategizing and doing creative and coming up with this stuff, you know?
Yeah.
But I wanted to just give you a quick little kudos, because, you know, I'm watching here someone who's, you know, been in advertising and marketing for 15 years, someone who's a content creator, someone who's been on LinkedIn since you were probably in diapers. Well, not so much diapers, but, you know, and learning how to ride a bike with training wheels on at that point. And I'm busting your balls here a little bit.
I mean, that's a long time. So, I mean, that's a
yeah.
large, I figure that out, actually.
I'm teaching my daughter now. We're trying to take advantage of this time, but you know, you guys are doing it well. And I urge you to really just be patient. I know that, you know, growth is an exciting thing, especially when it's happening fast in this accelerated world that we live in, but keep your eye on the prize and just do things slowly and smart, and everything's going to come to you, you know, because you're differentiating yourselves. You're really differentiating. So my next question is, you know, how does that translate to how you approach your clients? Right. I mean, what's your account management style? What's the creative process that you guys have? Without giving away all your secrets here, we don't want to, you know, help other people replicate this.
Yeah, I mean, go for it. Try. Yeah. Do it.
Try, please.
Please.
I say the same thing with my shit. Everyone's like, "Oh my god, how do you do all these podcasts and live streams and everything? Is it just turning on a button?" I'm like, you have no clue what happens behind the scenes here. You have no clue how much effort and planning and workflow goes into it.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great segue. I think one, just to kind of like touch on the things that you just pointed out there, growing the right way is super, super important to me, more than anything else. Like, I think that there's this, and I do want to touch on this really quickly, actually.
Go for it. I think the floor is yours, man. I did my monologue. It's all yours, man.
I think there's this incredible misnomer about, and maybe it's just lack of education. And I think maybe it exists on LinkedIn because, weirdly, I mean, LinkedIn is a platform that started with a like, it's aging down, right? So it's like a very fascinating thing to look at.
We could have a whole separate sidebar on that.
Yeah, but the existing user base and predominant user base and the age group in there is not that socially native. And so maybe it's just a problem that exists because of that. Like, I know Instagram had similar issues, but the developers were very quick to stamp them out as fast as possible when it happened. So it's interesting to kind of like look at the ecosystem as a whole. But the reason why
timeline, yep.
Yeah. Like, the growing the right way is so important. And this is, I genuinely think, lack of education, like, is mostly because of the fact that if you don't, it creates massive problems. And here's why. So it's like, how you need to perceive a social network or a social ecosystem. And this is kind of like the North Star in all of my theory here, is that it's a market of attention. So people producing and consuming content that takes attention or information. And so how you win and succeed in the market is diversification and being the best product, right? So it's like, and then you're rewarded with likes, shares, comments, followers, all that jazz. So when you cheat the system and you gain followers in a way that's not ethical, or we're doing certain like if you're buying followers, or if you're like, I mean, and I'm more so speaking on the organic side of things. Like if you're like, I think brands buying followers is much less of a crime, like actual like established businesses who are just trying to like build legitimacy for themselves, because, and that can kind of tie into my next thing where we associate follower count with legitimacy. Like, I think that's much less of a crime, because like you're an organized business and it makes sense that you want to be viewed as legitimate. Whereas,
I understand that.
Whereas with individuals doing it, the massive problem with that and cheating the system with the individuals is that you're giving legitimization to people who don't necessarily always deserve it.
Or have the authority or the experience.
Right. And so, I mean, like, and there's countless stories on LinkedIn, if you look in hard enough, of people who've gamed the system to gain a follower count. And then everyone think that they're God because they have a large follower count.
Doesn't mean shit, man.
No. And then them getting clients or something, like whatever business as a result of it, and just absolutely like catastrophically failing at what
awful. They have no clue.
That it's just a waste of money. It's a bad
waste of effort.
Yeah, it's a bad firm in the market, right? And it puts a black stain on everyone else, and particularly in marketing, I think more than anywhere else, just because of how easy the entry exit is into this industry. And so that's a great segue.
And the gamification element to it.
Yeah. And that's a great segue into kind of the business side of things that you just talked about, which is like, hey, we're a bunch of 20 to 24-year-olds who went into client services, right? Like this is a business model that's supposed to be dying.
Allegedly. Yeah,
allegedly. And the thought process behind that is like, we're a bunch of, I would like to say, like everyone else around here is smarter than me. Like I'm not the smartest person here. So it's like,
you don't want to be.
We're a bunch of really, really, really smart people who have decided to step into a field without a college degree in client services, which is a really hard business venture to even go into successfully and scale successfully, right? Like to go into client services and then go into what's technically a dying market and start gaining traction and start gaining market share. It's a really fun challenge, I think, for all of us. And so the patience thing is huge there. It's like knowing when all of the big stuff that you have working and that's in the back of your mind and is going to go through, or you're in conversation with at some point, knowing when all of that does and there's that snap, like being prepared to take that next step has been something that's hugely important for us. And it's like also understanding that it might not be in the next 10 days. It might be 60 days, it might be 90 days.
It's got to be patient.
Right. And like, I think that weirdly, like now more than ever, it's only going to get better, I guess. We all have a stronger grasp on what that actually looks like and what patience in this market looks like. And so it's fun.
Every page changing, man.
Yeah, I mean, it's fun to look at everything that's going on around me right now, being like, we're on the cusp of something big in the next 60 days, right? Like, it's really fun to see that coming and culminating and being more sure of it than I ever was in the past. So the patience side of thing, I think, is just massive there.
Yeah. And
then the cockiness thing that you talked about, like it strikes me as that Conor McGregor quote, which is just I may be arrogant, but I back it up, like in that FBI.
It's so true, man. Right? It's so fucking true.
I mean, and maybe that's just me.
You earn it.
I look at my tonality in my writing a lot, and I think that my writing style is a little bit unique to myself. Like just because I'm so like anti bullshit always. Like I'm just like, good. This is how I am talking. This is what I'm thinking. This is what I'm going to say. Like there is never any sugarcoating.
Right. It's a logical flow going from head to mouth to hands, right?
Yeah. And so it's just like if I write something, what's the best way I think in pictures. And so words are not always the best way for me to explain what I'm thinking, but writing is, right? And so whenever I'm writing something down, whenever I'm putting something into the world physically and have time to think about the way I want things to phrase and stuff, I am generally and genuinely very, very confident in whatever that piece of writing says. And so
well thought.
I think it's a super fun way to express some of the ideas and things going on in the back of my mind, in the back of all of our minds. So I love the arrogance side of things a little bit.
Yeah, and as long as you're backing it up, right? And I also think that as a creative or even somebody who's, you know, positioning themselves in their personal branding or professional branding, and I urge this, is to have a point of view. You don't want to be vanilla, right? You don't want to be vanilla because you want to stand out, right? And but when you do that, you have to be mindful of your tone, and you have to be mindful of how it's going to land, how it's going to be perceived and received by the end user, right? The listener, the viewer, whoever's consuming that piece of content, and what you want them to take away with it. And that's why it's so critical to be mindful of your tone, especially in these days of such uncertainty. And I want to pivot the conversation to some current events happening right now. First of all, you know, what's happening on the ground in Kansas City? We're here in New York. It's an absolute hellhole. We're going through it. It's a disaster. People I know are sick. People around us are sick. It's scary as hell. And, you know, I urge you guys, just a little PSA, to take this seriously, because what's going to happen is it's coming to the middle of the country. It's working its way. You know, I mean, we see it in Detroit, Chicago. Take it seriously. But what's like that feeling? Like, what are people feeling? Is it apprehension? Are they scared? Are they nervous? Are they bored, as I heard in some neighborhoods?
I mean, whenever this first, so Kansas City is weirdly very progressive about stuff like this, and historically is smart about taking the right kind of action. And I'll get into that in a second. But I think the funny thing is to note at first, when this whole social distancing thing came around and like the whole concept behind it, everyone in the Midwest just started joking that we just do that anyway.
Naturally,
operate normally, right? But of course, you know, we soon learned that you can't just operate normally, and there's things that you need to be doing and precautions that you need to be having. I think at first there was apprehension, right? But I mean, the concept and the idea of like your body being unable to process external stress versus internal stress, and knowing like what's real, and like confronting that concept. And we had like, whenever this was declared a national emergency, like we had a team meeting immediately the next morning. Like we called every single one of our clients and kind of
proactive.
Yeah, we understood kind of our situation with them. You know, we took the right kind of steps. We had a team meeting. Like, for instance, I'm in the office right now. And there's, I mean, like really out of everybody here, like the same 4 people are the only people who've been in the office all week. And it's like the core 4 that we call it, which is like the Carter, Evan, Jake, Luke, where we just,
your E team.
Yeah. And everyone else is, you know, remote or doing things elsewhere. Like I haven't personally seen anybody else on the team in the last 7, 8, 9 days. And
you're in the office right now.
Yeah. And we're just
they haven't imposed any.
No, they have. Yeah. So we can claim, there was a couple things we're doing for some healthcare clients that we can claim essential business for, that are necessities, and we don't want to stop, and we want to make sure that runs as smoothly as possible.
Yeah, but why do you got to be in the office physically?
Because like, there's some coordination, some efforts with some equipment that we have here that needs to be used.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah. And I mean, that is just what it is. And we've had conversations about that, but I mean, I live alone. Jake and Evan live together actually. And so it's like, I haven't seen anybody other than them in the last 10 days. And I don't.
Yeah. And that's another thing too, right? Like listen, there's certain degrees of social distancing, like within your immediate circles, and understanding where people are coming in and out of, and like, it's really best effort. It has to be best effort. And as long as you're doing that and being mindful, and you do what you got to do and take all the other precautions, you'll be all right.
Yeah. I mean, the moment that I have any inkling of like cough, tickle, like sick, like, nope, I'm out, you know, like, and that's what it needs to be like. And we've kind of had that discussion, and we made sure that's correct. And so it's like, if we are going to be operating, and it's like, we socially distance, like we're 6 feet away from each other while we're in here. Like, I think the
not trying to be all dad like, but you know, take this shit seriously, man. It's real.
Yeah, no, like I think there's an unfortunate reality with the meme culture that exists inside of the younger generation, like the younger side of Gen Z, where people confuse like a few really loud voices that some of us think are funny for speaking for everybody. Like everybody that I know, everyone's parents that has kids that I know around here are taking this very, very seriously. And so like I do sort of want to clear the air there, which is like everybody my age that I know like is like locked in the house, like does not want to hang out with people.
I mean, that's how you're going to stop it from infiltrating your community and your town. Right. If it doesn't have a chance to spread, it will die. It will not spread. And also there's natural social distancing when you get to these smaller towns. And I mean, I'm calling anything outside of New York City or Los Angeles small. So I'm not trying to insult KC. Right. Like any of these, it's a saturation, right? It's a saturation point of these. Listen, New York, I mean, you have millions of people physically living on top of each other.
Right.
How's it not going to spread?
Yeah, I mean, the awesome thing about Kansas City is it's grown a ton in the last 10 years, but it's grown out, right? Like there's so much room.
Not high.
And so the physical area, I mean, like it's annoying because you have to drive a million years whenever you want to get anywhere. But the physical area and like the physical space between individuals, something like this is not like, I wouldn't say like it's going to stop it. No, like, but it's alleviating a little bit, like in terms of nervousness. Like it's like, okay, if you are socially isolated in your house, like you can have an acre around you, you know, like no one will. I mean, like even if you're in a neighborhood, like there's significant space around your household where you can lock yourself down.
There's land. There's land. That's a good thing here. So I want to wrap it up here, and I want to talk about after we get through this, because we will. Like absolutely, I'm confident we will. It's never going to be the same again. But what's that 1 year goal, the big, let's put that star up there, attainable goal for you guys. I mean, where do you want to be? What kind of clients are you looking for? Who's kind of like your dream roster? What kind of work do you want to be doing?
Man. See, the funny thing is like every single huge opportunity that we've had. So, but like right now we're in the midst of like 3 or 4 just massive opportunities that are in the process of like either closed and about to be kind of public, or like in the process of closing, or we're working on, right? And so like, and every single one of those has been like, there's no way we're actually doing that, right? Like it's like something beyond belief. And so
like, I can't believe we're actually doing this shit. Right. It's really happening.
And so every single like goal in terms of like client that I want to work with or campaign I want to work on is like, it always just gets blown out of the water. So there's almost no point in setting one anymore. It's like, like keep your head down, work hard, and whatever comes to you is going to come to you. I think it's the mindset of things.
Yeah, man. That's a great attitude.
In terms of like the team that we have around here, I just want to grow. I mean, the whole North Star of our agency is to eventually, I mean, it already is, but like to really scale into an education program that allows for a college alternative. For people
wow, that's awesome.
For themselves. Yeah. And so it's like I think hopefully whenever, like in a year from now, I really want to get that rolling in like 6 or 7 months at max. So, but it's like, in my mind, in a year from now or at the end of this year, like that needs to be in full scale and moving and like getting in the right direction. Like I think that would be absolutely ideal and be really, really awesome to have launched and moving by that point. Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it. And then I mean, like everything else is just, like I said before, head down, work, and see what happens. Always.
That's awesome. Well, I'm a big fan of you guys. I appreciate you coming on here today. Use me as a resource, man. Use me as a sounding board. I know I'm kind of just an old fart here, but I bring a lot of different perspective and experiences. So if you ever want to bounce something off me confidentially, you know how to reach me now. Happy to do so and be a resource for you guys. And I'm excited to just watch you guys on the sidelines, man. I'm excited to watch what you do and watch what you build. Keep doing what you're doing. Don't be apologetic. Have no regrets, and just take chances and make shit happen, man.
Yeah. Appreciate it. Thank you. That's
cool.
Awesome.
Luke, and where could folks find you? Where could they connect with you? Where could they learn more about you guys?
Well, my name is written at the bottom of that screen if you want to go search me on LinkedIn. That's my Instagram as well. If you want my personal stuff from a brand standpoint, I mean, like Trendsetters Media, Trendsetters without the vowels, like we talked about at the beginning. So either worst or best branding move of all time, let me know. Send me a message. But yeah, like just go follow all of our social accounts. We're on everything. We're posting content and everything, even Facebook.
Fantastic. Even Facebook, even the Gen Zs are still using. Are Gen Z still using Facebook?
Depends. That's a really interesting.
My dad's watching us now. Hi, Dad. Dad's watching us on Facebook, which I debated. I'm like, do I stream this on Facebook as well? And you know what? Yeah, why not? Who cares? Hi, Facebook. Hi, Jim, Corey, any of my other buddies watching on Facebook that are going to make fun of me later.
The process of making that decision was really simple, actually, which is just like if one more person sees our content on Facebook than they do on Instagram, it's worth it immediately.
Yeah.
Because all we have to do is click a couple more buttons with the management tools. So it's
it's really pretty seamless. Well, Luke, I certainly appreciate you and your time. Let's stay connected here. Everybody watching, again, thank you for joining us on the podcast live. To wrap up the week, tomorrow at 5:00, and this is one you should tune into. I'm having happy hour. I'm having a scotch with Bon and Bo. And if you don't know Bon and Luke, I highly recommend that you Google him and see what he's all about. He is a world-class marketer. Bon and Bo is awesome. That's tomorrow at 5:00. Have a scotch with Bon and Bo. And then at 1:00 on Friday, I'm going to wrap the week up with my man, Dave Meltzer. And we're going to be talking with Dave Meltzer about how we're all getting through this, how we're getting past it, how we're going to overcome it, and just tapping into energies, vibes, and all that kind of good stuff. Dave Meltzer is my spirit animal, my spiritual mentor, I guess, if you want to call him that. And it's going to be a fun show. And then next week, I'm wrapping it up. The ladies of LinkedIn will be joining me. I have Madeline Mann. I have Jill Katz. And I have a couple more guests that I'll be announcing shortly. So everyone watching, thank you. Take care. Luke, thanks for your time, my man. And we'll talk soon. And I'll share this on YouTube. I'll get that over to you as well. Everyone take care. Enjoy your hump day. Wash your hands. Stay 6 to 10 feet away from each other. And we will get through this. Take care, everybody.
Well.